My name is Victoria Hayes. I was 34 years old when my own sister tried to turn my son into a criminal to cover up her theft. Looking back now, the stolen money wasn't the part that hurt the most. Money can be recovered. Trust is harder, especially when the people betraying you are the same people who spent years claiming they loved your child. The first sign that something was wrong came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting alone in the break room at work, halfway through a sandwich, when my phone started vibrating non-stop. One missed call, then another, then 3 more. Text messages appeared so quickly, I couldn't even read them before new ones arrived. The first one was from my mother. Victoria, you need to get control of Ethan. The second was from my father. This is exactly what happens when you spoil a child. Then came a wall of messages from relatives, repeating the same thing. Your son stole from you. Your son embarrassed the family. Your son is out of control. My stomach dropped. For one terrifying second, I thought Ethan had been hurt. My 16-year-old son was many things. Quiet, curious, stubborn when he believed he was right, but reckless. Never. As I read further, confusion slowly turned into disbelief. According to my older sister, Monica, she had seen Ethan at the mall after school carrying expensive shopping bags. She claimed he'd been flashing around a credit card, bragging about new electronics, and acting like he owned the world. Apparently, he'd spent nearly $5,000 in a single afternoon, and somehow everyone believed her. No questions, no investigation, no phone call to Ethan. Just immediate judgment. The familiar anger settled in my chest, because this wasn't the first time Monica had been believed without evidence. Growing up, she had always been the golden child. If Monica lied, there had to be a reason. If Monica made mistakes, somebody else must have caused them. If Monica wanted sympathy, everyone rushed to provide it. I learned years ago that arguing rarely changed anything, but this wasn't about me anymore. This was about my son. I opened my banking app. Last summer, I had given Ethan an emergency credit card connected to my account. He'd gotten stranded during a school trip after losing access to his phone and wallet. After that incident, I wanted him to have a backup in case of emergencies. The card stayed hidden in his room. He rarely even mentioned it. I clicked on the account. Then I froze. The balance was maxed out. Every dollar gone. A cold wave rolled through my body. The transactions appeared one after another. An iPhone, a MacBook, wireless headphones, an iPad, designer clothing, food deliveries. Thousands of dollars spent within 4 hours. I checked the timestamps twice, then a third time. Every purchase happened during school hours. At exactly the time Ethan should have been sitting in class, my pulse slowed. Not because I felt better, because something suddenly made sense. A memory surfaced. Monica had stopped by our house several days earlier. She said a package had been delivered there by mistake, and asked if she could pick it up. I wasn't home. Ethan was at school. She'd been alone in the house for almost 20 minutes. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now the memory felt different. Sharp, dangerous. I drove home after work with a growing feeling of dread. When I walked through the front door, Ethan was sitting on the couch exactly where I had left him that morning. His backpack rested beside him. His shoes were still on. His eyes were red. Not angry. Not guilty. What? The sight alone told me more than any text message could. I sat beside him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked quietly, "Where's the emergency card?" He looked up. Confusion crossed his face. "The card? Yes." He frowned. "I haven't seen it in weeks." My heart sank. "You didn't use it." His expression changed immediately. Like somebody had slapped him. "Mom, you think I did?" The pain in his voice nearly broke me. I reached for his hand. "No." And I meant it. Not for 1 second. He lowered his head. "Grandma called me." I felt my jaw tighten. What did she say? He hesitated. Then he swallowed. She said she was disappointed in me. The room suddenly felt smaller, hotter, crueler. A 16-year-old boy sitting there wondering why his family thought he was a thief. I wrapped my arm around his shoulders, and in that moment, something inside me hardened. Because I already knew who had done this. I just needed proof. Monica had borrowed money before. Forgotten loans. Convenient lies. Mystery emergencies. Excuses that changed every week. But targeting Ethan, that was new. That crossed a line I wasn't willing to forgive. That night, after Ethan went upstairs, I started making calls. The largest purchase came from an electronics store across town. I contacted the manager and explained that my credit card had been used without authorization. At first, he refused to discuss anything. Company policy, privacy concerns, legal restrictions. I understood, but I also refused to back down. I explained that I was preparing to file a police report. I explained that thousands of dollars were involved. And I explained that whoever used the card might have committed fraud. Eventually, the manager paused. Then he told me to come in the next morning. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Ethan sitting on that couch, alone, humiliated, wondering why nobody believed him. The next morning, I arrived at the store carrying printed transaction records. The manager, a nervous man named Daniel, greeted me near the back office. He clearly wanted this entire situation to disappear. Unfortunately for him, so did I. And one of us was about to get their wish. Daniel pulled up the surveillance footage. The timestamp matched the first purchase, 2:14 p.m. 2 days earlier, Ethan had been sitting in chemistry class. The video loaded, and there she was. Monica, my sister, clear as daylight, standing at the counter, smiling, holding my card. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. I just stared at the screen. There was no doubt, no blurry image, no confusing angle, no possibility that someone would mistake her for another person. It was Monica. My sister stood at the checkout counter, holding the emergency card that belonged to my 16-year-old son. She looked completely relaxed, comfortable, almost happy. She wasn't acting like someone committing fraud. She looked like someone spending money she believed she would never have to repay. I watched her purchase an iPhone worth over $1,000, then a MacBook, then expensive headphones, a pair of tablets. She chatted with the cashier and laughed at something he said. When the transaction finished, she gathered the bags and walked out without a trace of guilt. The footage felt less like evidence and more like an insult, as if she had been certain nobody would ever bother checking, as if she had already decided Ethan would take the blame, and everyone would accept it. My hands clenched into fists, not because of the money, because she had chosen him. She could have blamed anyone. Instead, she picked a teenager who trusted her, a boy who called her Aunt Monica, a boy who had proudly made her birthday cards when he was little, a boy who never imagined she would sacrifice him to save herself. Daniel offered to help me contact other stores where purchases had been made. I thanked him and left, but honestly, I already had everything I needed. The footage, the timestamps, the card records, the school attendance report proving Ethan had been in class. It was enough. Still, I spent the next 24 hours gathering more evidence. I downloaded transaction histories, printed receipts, saved screenshots. Then, I found something unexpected. One of the items Monica had purchased was already listed for sale online. A brand new tablet, still sealed. The serial number matched the receipt from my card statement. She hadn't even bothered hiding her identity. Her real name, her phone number, everything was attached to the listing. The arrogance stunned me. It also gave me an idea. Instead of calling the police immediately, I decided to let Monica destroy her own story first. So I called my mother. I asked if Monica would be at their house that evening. Mom happily told me yes. Monica was helping clean the garage. The helpful daughter, the responsible daughter, the daughter who had somehow convinced everyone that my son was a thief. I told Mom that Ethan and I would stop by. There was a brief silence. Then she said something that made my blood boil. I hope you're ready to have a serious conversation with Ethan about consequences. Consequences. The word echoed in my head all afternoon. By the time Ethan and I arrived 3 hours later, my anger had cooled into something far more dangerous. Determination. My parents sat in the living room. Monica sat beside them with a glass of wine. When we entered, she smiled. Not warmly, not lovingly. The smile of someone who thought she'd already won. I noticed Ethan tense beside me. He hadn't said much during the drive. The accusations from his grandparents had cut deeper than he wanted to admit. I squeezed his shoulder. Then I set my laptop on the coffee table. I want to show everyone something. Monica's smile faltered. Only slightly, but I noticed. I opened the video file and pressed play. The room fell silent. The footage began. The timestamp appeared. Then Monica walked onto the screen. For a moment, nobody reacted. It was as though their brains refused to process what they were seeing. My mother blinked repeatedly. My father leaned forward. Monica froze. The recording continued. Purchase after purchase. Bag after bag. Every stolen dollar displayed in high definition. When the video ended, silence filled the room. Heavy, uncomfortable, impossible to escape. My mother looked pale. My father seemed 20 years older. Ethan stared at the floor. And Monica. Monica did what Monica always did. She lied. That's not me. The words came instantly, almost automatically. I nearly laughed. The footage clearly showed her face, her clothes, her voice, even her driver's license during one transaction, yet she still denied it. The video was edited. Nobody spoke. She pointed at me. Victoria is framing me. Still, nobody spoke. Then she tried something even more ridiculous. She's covering for Ethan. That was when I reached into my bag. I pulled out screenshots of the online sale listings. Then I placed them on the table, her name, her phone number, the matching serial numbers. The room became even quieter. For the first time, Monica looked nervous. Not guilty, not ashamed, nervous. Because she was running out of exits. My father picked up one of the papers. His hands shook slightly. Monica. She didn't answer. Mom looked like she wanted to disappear. Years of favoritism were collapsing right in front of her. Then Ethan finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but every word landed like a hammer. I told you I didn't do it. Nobody responded. Because nobody could. The truth sat in the middle of the room. Undeniable. Monica suddenly stood. I don't need this. She headed toward the door. Then I said the words that stopped her. I haven't contacted the police yet. She froze. The entire room froze. Slowly. She turned around. Fear appeared in her eyes for the first time that night. Real fear. Not embarrassment. Not frustration. Fear. Because suddenly, she understood this wasn't another family argument. This wasn't something she could cry her way out of. There were consequences waiting outside. That living room? Legal consequences. I looked directly at my father. You believed her without asking Ethan a single question. His shoulders dropped. He couldn't deny it. Then I looked at my mother. You called your grandson a thief. Tears filled her eyes. But I wasn't interested in tears. Not yet. I was interested in accountability. I'm giving everyone one chance. The room waited. Monica returns every dollar she stole. Or tomorrow morning I file a police report. Monica exploded. She accused me of destroying her life. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding. She said she had intended to repay the money. She said she was struggling with rent. She said she panicked. Excuse after excuse poured out. None of them changed the facts. Finally, I asked a simple question. Did Ethan ever go shopping at the mall? My parents exchanged a glance. That was all the answer I needed. Monica had invented the entire story. Every detail, every accusation, every lie. She hadn't simply stolen money. She had built a false narrative around a child, and my parents had accepted it without hesitation. A few minutes later, Monica asked to speak with me privately. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We stepped into the hallway. The moment we were alone, her entire personality changed. The outrage disappeared. The victim act vanished. Now she looked desperate. It wasn't personal. I stared at her. She actually thought those words would help. I panicked. She whispered, "I needed money." "Where are the items?" She hesitated. That told me everything. "Most of them are gone." Salt. A long pause, then a nod. "How much do you still have?" "About $1,500. I almost laughed. $5,000 stolen. Most of it already sold. And she wanted sympathy. "I can pay the rest later." "No." "Victoria." "No." Her eyes widened. For once, nobody was rescuing her. Nobody was making excuses. Nobody was cleaning up her mess. "You have 72 hours. She looked stunned. "Or what?" I stepped closer. "Or I take every piece of evidence I have and hand it directly to the police." The color drained from her face. When I turned to leave, she reached for me, almost like she intended to hug me, to smooth things over, to pretend we were still sisters. I stepped back. She stopped immediately. And for the first time, I saw realization hit her. This wasn't one of her usual mistakes. Something had broken, maybe permanently. That night, after we got home, I sat beside Ethan in his room. He was pretending to do homework, pretending not to think about what had happened, pretending his grandparents hadn't chosen Monica over him. "How are you doing?" He stared at his notebook. After a long silence, he answered, "I don't think I'll ever trust her again." The sadness in his voice hurt more than the stolen money ever could. I wanted to tell him everything would be okay, but some wounds don't heal that easily. Instead, I promised him something else. "I won't let anyone blame you for something you didn't do." He nodded, and for the first time in days, I saw a little relief in his eyes. What Monica didn't know was that while she was desperately trying to find money, I had already started tracing where the stolen electronics had gone, and very soon, I was about to meet someone she never expected. Someone whose involvement would turn her bad situation into a disaster. The next morning, I started digging deeper. At first, I only wanted to recover the stolen items. Maybe locate a few buyers. Maybe collect enough evidence to strengthen the case if Monica failed to repay the money. I wasn't expecting what I found. One of the online listings led me to a man named Richard Lawson. The profile matched the buyer of the MacBook. I hesitated before sending a message. Then I introduced myself. I explained the situation carefully. No drama. No emotional language. Just facts. A stolen emergency credit card. Unauthorized purchases. A family member who had already been caught on surveillance footage. Then I attached copies of the receipts. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Richard replied. The first thing he told me surprised me. He was a defense attorney. He'd been practicing law for more than a decade. The second thing surprised me even more. He said Monica had made him uncomfortable during the sale. Apparently, she'd seemed nervous, rushed, evasive. She kept changing details whenever he asked questions. At the time, he assumed she was simply desperate for cash. Now he wasn't so sure. A few minutes later, he sent me photographs. The MacBook, the receipt, the serial number, everything matched. Then came the message that changed the entire situation. If you decide to move forward legally, he wrote, I'll provide a statement. I stared at the screen. Monica wasn't dealing with vague accusations anymore. She was dealing with witnesses, evidence, documentation, people outside the family who had absolutely no reason to lie. Richard also mentioned something that hadn't occurred to me. If she sold these items this easily, he said, there may be more victims. That sentence stayed with me, because suddenly the situation felt bigger than one stolen credit card, bigger than one lie. What if this wasn't the first time? What if Monica had simply gotten away with similar things before, over the next 2 days? My phone became a steady stream of messages. Most of them came from Monica. Some were apologies. Others were excuses. Several were emotional breakdowns, carefully crafted to make me feel guilty. One message claimed she couldn't sleep. Another said she was having panic attacks. A third insisted she never intended to hurt Ethan. I ignored every one, because not a single message was directed at the person she had hurt most, my son. Meanwhile, I continued working. Richard connected me with another buyer, then another. One still had the original packaging. Another had a receipt Monica had accidentally included. The evidence kept growing. Every new piece confirmed the same thing. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated. Monica had stolen the card, purchased expensive electronics, resold them quickly, created a false story, then blamed a 16-year-old boy. Every step required planning. Every step required a choice. And she had made those choices willingly. The 72-hour deadline was almost over when Monica sent another message. I've managed to get $2,000. I stared at it. 2,000. Not 5. Not the full amount she owed. Just enough to make it seem like she was trying. Then another message arrived. Please give me more time. I didn't answer. Instead, I called my parents. This time, I asked to meet them alone. No, Monica, no excuses, just the truth. We met at a small coffee shop near their neighborhood. The atmosphere felt completely different from our last conversation. A week earlier, they had been angry, confident, certain Ethan was guilty. Now they looked exhausted, older somehow, as if reality had finally caught up with them. I placed a thick folder on the table. My father stared at it. What is that? Everything. I opened it. Store receipts, transaction logs, surveillance screenshots, online listings, statements from buyers, school attendance records proving Ethan was in class during every purchase, page after page. Evidence. My mother slowly covered her mouth. The deeper they looked, the quieter they became. Finally, I asked them a question, a simple one. Do either of you still believe Ethan stole that money? Neither answered, because they couldn't. My father stared into his coffee. My mother looked close to tears. Then she said something that almost made me laugh. Monica has been under a lot of stress. For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. Stress. That was the defense. Not innocence. Not proof. Stress. I leaned back in my chair. You know who else has been under stress? She looked at me. Ethan. The silence that followed was brutal. I continued. He spent days thinking his grandparents believed he was a criminal. Neither of them responded. He trusted Monica. Still silence. He trusted both of you. My father's eyes closed. That one landed, because deep down, he knew it was true. The damage wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in trust, and trust had been shattered. When I stood to leave, I gave them one final update. She has 24 hours. My father looked up, and if she doesn't pay, I met his chaza. I moved forward. No threats, no anger, just certainty. That night, another message arrived from Richard. And this one changed everything. He had located 2 additional buyers. Both had purchased electronics from Monica. Both were willing to cooperate. One still possessed the original receipt. The other still had the product box with the serial number. Everything matched my records. I sat in my kitchen reading the messages. A strange calm settled over me. Because the outcome was becoming inevitable, Monica had left too many fingerprints, too many traces, too many lies. She'd spent years believing she could manipulate every situation. This time, she couldn't. Around noon the next day, I made one final attempt to contact her. No answer. I wasn't surprised. I sent a text. $3,000 still missing. 3 devices traced. Multiple witnesses. 6 hours. That's all that's left. No response came. Hours passed. Nothing. My mother later told me Monica was hiding in the guest room at their house, sleeping, crying, pacing. Depending on which version of the story you believed, for the first time in her life, nobody could save her. Not her parents. Not excuses. Not lies. Just after 5 o'clock. My phone vibrated. A photograph appeared. An envelope. Inside was a cashier's check. $3,000. The exact remaining balance. A minute later, another message arrived. We're even now? I stared at the screen. Then read it again. We're even? The words made something inside me go cold. Even. As if this had only been about money. As if a check erased humiliation. As if repayment erased betrayal. As if Ethan's pain had a price tag. Then the final sentence appeared. Please don't ruin my life. I didn't answer. Instead, I took the check and walked upstairs. Ethan was in his room playing a video game. Headphones on. Focused. For the first time in days. He actually looked relaxed. I waited until he noticed me. Then, I held up the envelope. She paid everything back. He blinked. What? Every dollar? For a moment he simply stared. Not happy. Not excited. Just thoughtful. Then he asked the question that broke my heart. Do Grandma and Grandpa believe me now? I swallowed hard. Yes. He nodded slowly, like he wanted to believe it. Like part of him still wasn't sure. I asked if he'd like to ride with me to return the MacBook to Richard. Maybe grab burgers afterward. For the first time all week, I saw the hint of a smile. Sure. As we left the house together, I realized something important. The money had been recovered. The evidence was overwhelming. Monica's lies had collapsed. But the real work was only beginning, because rebuilding trust takes far longer than destroying it. And while Monica believed the nightmare was finally over, she had no idea that a much bigger problem was already heading straight toward her. One that neither I nor Ethan had started. One that would arrive in the form of a government letter 3 days later. My mother called me in a panic. The moment I answered, I knew something had happened. Her voice sounded strained, shaky, like someone trying desperately to keep control. Victoria, she said. It's Monica. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What about her? There was a long pause. Then Mom exhaled. She got a letter. At first I didn't think much of it. People get letters every day. Bills, bank statements, advertisements. Then, Mom continued. It came from the IRS. Now I was listening. According to my mother, Monica had opened the envelope, gone completely white, and locked herself inside the guest bathroom for nearly 2 hours. Nobody could get her to come out. Nobody could get her to explain. And for the first time, nobody was rushing to defend her either. The situation had changed. The blind loyalty was gone. The excuses were gone. The illusion was gone. Because once people finally see the truth, it's hard to unsee it. After I hung up, I immediately thought of Richard. Later that afternoon, I called him. His response confirmed my suspicion. After discovering the circumstances surrounding the MacBook sale, he had followed standard professional procedures and reported the suspicious transaction. Not out of revenge, not because I'd asked him to, simply because documentation connected a high-value resale item to questionable circumstances, and Monica had left a trail, a very obvious trail. Marketplace listings, payment records, message, receipts, digital transfers. She'd treated every transaction like a quick fix. The problem was that quick fixes leave evidence, lots of it, especially when someone gets careless, and Monica had been very careless. Over the following week, more information surfaced. One of the buyers, she'd sold an iPad to contacted authorities independently. Apparently Monica had made him uncomfortable too. She insisted on cash, avoided questions, changed details repeatedly. The more he learned, the more suspicious he became. Eventually, he filed a report himself. I didn't encourage it. I didn't need to. Monica's own behavior had done the work for me. Meanwhile, something else changed. My parents stopped defending her. Not dramatically, not publicly, but noticeably. The excuses became smaller, less frequent, less convincing. One evening, my father called me. We hadn't spoken much since everything happened. When I answered, he was quiet for several seconds. Then he said something I never expected. "I failed, Ethan." The words surprised me, because my father rarely admitted mistakes, especially serious ones. I listened. I should have asked questions. "Yes," I said gently. I should have believed him. "Yes." Another long silence followed. Then he added something that hurt even more. "I think I always assumed Monica would eventually grow out of these things." I closed my eyes, because that sentence explained decades of family history, every lie, every excuse, every second chance, every rescue. Everyone had been waiting for Monica to change. Nobody noticed that she never had. My father apologized to Ethan a few days later. Not because I demanded it, because he wanted to. The conversation wasn't perfect. There were awkward pauses, regret, embarrassment, but it was sincere. And Ethan appreciated that. My mother apologized too, though I could tell she struggled more. Not because she didn't feel guilty, because accepting the truth meant accepting that her favorite child had become the source of the family's biggest betrayal. That realization hurt her deeply. For Ethan, healing happened slowly. He never asked about Monica, never mentioned her, never expressed anger, which worried me more than if he had screamed. Because silence often hides wounds people don't know how to describe. One evening while we were eating dinner, he finally spoke. "Did Aunt Monica ever feel bad?" The question caught me off guard. I thought carefully before answering. "I think she felt sorry for herself." He nodded, then returned to eating, and somehow that felt like the end of the conversation. Children understand more than adults realize, especially when trust is broken. 2 weeks after the repayment, I saw Monica for the final time. She arrived unannounced, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy weather, a hood pulled over her head, looking over her shoulder every few seconds. Like someone convinced the world was watching, Ethan was spending the afternoon at a friend's house. Part of me wanted to send her away immediately. Instead, I opened the door. We sat in the living room. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The woman sitting across from me looked different, smaller somehow, not physically, emotionally. The confidence was gone. The smugness was gone. The certainty that somebody would always rescue her was gone. Finally, she spoke. "Are you going to press charges?" No apology, no explanation, just that. The question she'd been carrying for weeks. I studied her. The sister I grew up with. The sister who had stolen from my son. The sister who had lied to our parents The sister who had tried to destroy a child's reputation to save herself, and strangely, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just tired. I haven't decided. Her shoulders tightened. Is there anything I can do? The irony almost made me laugh. Anything. That question should have come before the theft, before the lies, before Ethan sat on that couch, believing nobody trusted him. I shook my head slowly. You already did everything you could. She looked confused, then hurt, but I continued. You taught Ethan exactly who you are. The words landed harder than any threat. Because they were true. A child who once admired his aunt now understood something important. Character matters. Choices matter. Trust matters. Monica lowered her eyes. For the first time, she had no argument. No excuse. No story. Just consequences. A few minutes later, she left. I watched her walk down the driveway, and I knew that chapter of our lives was over. I never saw her again. Months passed. Occasionally, I heard updates through relatives. She moved out of my parents' house, lost her job, started couch surfing between friends. Several opportunities disappeared after people quietly learned about the fraud allegations attached to her name. Nothing dramatic. No public scandal. No television cameras. Just the slow, steady consequences that follow bad decisions. One choice at a time. Exactly the way she'd created the problem in the first place. As for me, I never filed charges. Not because she deserved mercy, because Ethan didn't need another battle. He already got what mattered most. The truth. He knew I believed him. He knew facts mattered. Evidence mattered. And most importantly, he knew that when everyone else rushed to judgment, his mother stood beside him. Years from now, I doubt he'll remember the exact amount of money Monica stole. He probably won't remember the serial numbers, the receipts, the surveillance footage, but he'll remember something far more important. He'll remember sitting on that couch, believing the entire family had turned against him. And he'll remember that one person never did. Sometimes, justice isn't about punishment. Sometimes it's about refusing to abandon the people who depend on you. Monica stole money. She sold electronics. She lied. But the greatest damage she caused wasn't financial. It was the trust she destroyed. And that's the one thing she never managed to repay.